Hey, welcome to Raw and Real Autism Mom, and we are live, and I'm so excited to introduce to you a good friend of mine, Brentany. So Brentany, I can't do you justice, so I want you to share with us a little bit about your life so we can get to know you.
Okay, I'm in my 30s. I'm a mom to 5 beautiful kids, and my oldest son has autism. He is now considered on the high functioning side of the spectrum. So that's always fun. I'm from New Mexico, but we are now in Utah and we absolutely love it here. And all the great resources that Utah has too, especially for autism families. And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as we've been talking, one of the things that I really feel like you have been through and the experiences that you've had can really help moms is through your experiences through IEPs.
Yes, IEPs are such a whirlwind of a situation. I think if you've never been in it, you don't quite understand. I was just talking to a friend the other day, and they had their first IEP, and she was like, "Why didn't you tell me how I was gonna feel?" And I was like, "You don't ever know how you feel until you're there. It's such an experience that you never experience until you're there." And so one thing about IEPs is take it for what it is. Take it and go home and think about it. Go home and run through the feelings and run through the emotions. Don't sign the paper until you have thought about it for a whole solid week.
Until your feelings are good.
Yeah, you want to be in a good place and a good mindset. And just honestly, I always take mine home and I'm like, okay, how am I feeling about this? Genuinely in this moment right now, how am I feeling? Am I feeling upset? Don't sign it. Am I feeling happy? Maybe sign it. That could be a good time to sign it. But just really think about it and don't feel pressured into it. Best advice that I could give to somebody is just advocate for your child too. I could give you so many tips and advice, but definitely advocate for your child. You are their biggest supporter that they have, honestly. And nobody knows your child better than you know them. And I think we hear that all the time. But you have to know, what's right for your child. At the end of the day, you are the parent. And sometimes for me, I've always felt like teachers go home and this is their job, right? But it's not our job. It is a job to us, yes, but it is our child's life.
It's not a job that you leave and go home.
Yes.
You go home to this job. You have it 24/7.
Yes, and so you have to think about your child's future and your child's at home, where they're at right now. And what does that look like? What does that honestly, what are your goals for them and where do you see them and just everything in between it? You're not only looking at your goals for this year, but what are your life goals? Where do you want to see your child in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years and
I love that you can bring that into the IEP.
Yeah, for sure.
And for anyone who doesn't know, IEP is individual education program or plan, depending on what state you're in. I've been corrected, but some people call it program or plan. But whatever you call it, it's mainly a legal document that is it's required by law that anyone who works with your son at a public school is required to follow. And you can get creative on IEPs.
Oh, you can for sure get creative.
You can be like, no, he needs this specific seatbelt on the bus.
Yes.
Or you can say, no, when he throws things, I don't want you to go and pick them up because that's motivating for him. You can say very specific things. And both of those things are on my son's IEP, and he's a lot more severe and low functioning.
Yes.
Which, of course, I hate those words, but how do you even describe it quickly?
Yeah.
You can't describe autism quickly without even just saying the words that make me cringe.
Yes,
but
for sure.
So that's hard. But with your experience in public school, and I know, not everyone does the public school, but most people do. Most people, they don't really have a choice. They have to put their child in public school. And just depending on where you are, sometimes it's really difficult.
It is for sure.
Because autism is expensive.
It is very expensive.
And you want the best for your child, right?
Yes,
right.
for sure. Yeah.
But what I've heard from teachers is they're not even allowed to say the word "the best" for your child in an IEP. They can get in trouble.
Yes.
So you have all these different voices with all these different desires, and you're there, and sometimes it can feel intimidating.
Very intimidating.
Because they're all experts.
Yes.
They all have these degrees.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm a mom. I birthed him. Why am I here? Okay. Because I know him the best, right? Him or her. And so for someone who maybe they're just, it's their, like you mentioned your friend, tell me how I'm going to feel.
Oh,
I wish
okay.
someone could, what advice do you have for
For
someone?
my advice is you are going to get a set of parents' rights, right? And I think I am one to just be like, I don't need my parents' rights. I need the book, but like, I don't need you to read it through me, right? Like, or
Yeah.
read it to me. But if I were to go back, and if you don't know your parent rights, that is their job to read it to you. Have them read you all of those pages. Know your
It
rights.
might be awkward, but just try and listen, try and focus. It's hard for me to focus when people read to me, so.
Oh, yes, for sure. And be very detailed. I have learned through all sorts of IEPs, you be detailed on it and make sure that they are writing those things down. So like you said, if you want your son to be in this blue colored strap for their car seat,
Yeah.
you write that down because that is what holds it liable. So if you
Right.
just said like strap my child into a car seat, then they will strap your child into a car seat,
Yeah,
right?
or it might just be around his waist, and then
Yes.
he'd be out in a second,
And then they're
around.
running down the street. Yep. And so make sure that you are saying like exactly what you want to have happen. A few years ago, we had a moment where our son was being sent to the LR room quite often, and I finally said, I do not want him to be sent there, like at all. Call me before you do that.
What is an LR room?
I think in other, I'm not sure what it's called, but I believe it's like your bad behavior room is what it
So
kinda
it's
comes
like
down to.
timeout,
Yes.
seclusion for bad behavior.
Yes, and I kept thinking
Okay.
like, how
Yeah.
do we do that? Like, how do we put him in trouble for something that he cannot control himself?
Well, yeah, it's like saying like a child comes in with a wheelchair and like, oh, you're still in the wheelchair, you're gonna be
Yes.
punished. It's
Yes.
like what? It's like come on and walk. What, you can't walk, you fall to the ground. Okay, you get sent to a. It's like what?
Yes, it doesn't even make sense. And even on like that note, a few years ago, we even had a teacher or just staff in general just had taken away something that he had already got, like some tickets, I believe it was. And I was like, how can we take those away when he had earned those then and does not understand that he's losing them now? Like, so adding those
Yeah.
little details of like, you cannot take previous tokens or tickets or whatever it is away from him because he does not understand that. Like, adding that in was just kind of like, oh, that makes sense because he
Well,
doesn't understand that.
And you're gonna lose that trust because
Oh,
if
for
he
sure.
earns something, then and he doesn't understand why it gets taken away, then why is he gonna be motivated later to
earn it back.
a reward?
Exactly,
That's,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's difficult.
Yeah.
So is it, and teachers, I mean, they have so much responsibility.
So much
and
responsibility.
They don't get enough appreciation.
They
don't
definitely
get
don't.
paid enough.
No.
I mean, like, seriously, they don't get paid enough. And it's not fair.
Yes.
And yet usually they don't have the help and the support that they
No.
need.
Yes.
Especially when they have to help,
Another child.
who
is like maybe
needs
like 10
more
children.
time. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That might need more time and effort and just a little more help and stuff.
Yes.
So that's a hard thing to balance
It
in
is.
an IEP room.
It is. So so a couple years ago, I think you know a little about this, but other people don't know. We hired a lady to come in and help us with our IEP, and that was like such a moment in time that I like looking back through my notes today. I was like, oh my gosh, I could just cry. Like seriously, thinking about it and talking about it, I could just cry. But it was such a powerful moment and a moment that I felt heard in my son's journey. And I think for any mom who's been there or parent, that is a super powerful journey to just know that like they heard me and they heard me through all those ugly moments. And just for them to say, okay, we are going to break this down and we're going to maximize all of our support. And I thought at the time I was like, well, I don't know if our son needs that much support, but he definitely needed that support. And seeing pretty much we're stripped down to like our bare IEP necessities and like building them up and just saying like exactly what I wanted in that moment. I wanted my son to learn to tie his shoes. I wanted him to learn to tell the clock, to count money so that someday when he is older, he's not, being robbed or taken advantage of. But then what do you do as a teacher when they only have so much time and then we're doing an hour of speech therapy and an hour of OT and we're doing an hour with a psychologist? Like, where is my son's day going? But you have to decide, like, what is that priority for you right now in that moment? Is your priority going to be that typical...
Is it more like
friends?
academic or is it more social? Is it more
behavior?
functional?
Yes. And have to kind of decide, like, what's more important right now. And for us at the time, it was behavioral. And then now we're, like, looking at, like, academic parts of it. But there's been times that we are looking at that friendship part of school. And so I think just being very real with your group, your team, and your team is your best asset. Like, I always like love and hate it when they're like, it's because of you, because I'm like, no, it's actually because of you. Like, I'm like, you guys are the ones who are giving me those tools, and don't be afraid to say like, I need, and I remember our son was probably 6, he wasn't potty trained at the time, and being like, I need help being like my son getting potty trained. And just feeling kind of like, I should not have to ask for this. Like, my son's 6, they're his teachers, like what I do, but then also having that like trust in somebody to be like, I need help with this. Like, use them for anything. There are so many resources for this community. Like, I think in special needs, I do think sometimes there's like a bad rep on it, but also there's like that really encouraging, supportive team. And I don't know if everyone's felt that way, but I have felt that way. I've always felt like when we got into a sticky situation, there was somebody who knew somebody or did this, or, you know, just kind of directed us in the route that we needed to. So don't be afraid to use your IEP team to your advantage. And if it feels like that's not working for you, maybe that's the point that you discuss another option for your son. Like, rather that's a new school, rather that's just more resources in general. I do think when it comes to public school, they are on a short budget and also on a short time span. And so sometimes I do feel like you get the bare minimum of things, but push those resources. If they say 30 minutes, say 45. If they say 45, do an hour. Like, just push it as much as you can, because you know your child best. And so that is my advice, like right there. Just push everything as far as you can.
So get as much as you can for your child.
Yes.
But also don't be afraid to share those, or to ask those vulnerable questions.
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
Be like, I need help with this.
Yeah.
This is a problem at home, and how can we generalize certain behaviors or whatever.
Yes. And I think it's really powerful. Sometimes they see things that you don't see in the day-to-day, and they'll be like, are we doing too many transitions right now? And you're like, oh, maybe we could be. Like, you're a mom with many kids, and it is, you have so many kids coming in and out, and how do you control all of those aspects? But sometimes somebody seeing it and giving you those resources is like what you need, right? So I would suggest that for sure.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. That's really great.
I know. And so
how is your son doing with the school that he's at right now, with the classes and stuff?
So a couple years ago, we did our whole strip down to our IEP, and we pushed up all of our services to the max that we could in anything that we could. And it essentially became Parker kind of in his own classroom and kind of just moving in and out to classrooms. And now it was kind of rocky. We had COVID hit, and I think that was the most challenging part as a mom. I just remember being like, him crying and was like, I don't want to do this, and why are we doing this? And me also thinking, I also don't want to do this. Like,
I'm right there with you.
I'm not qualified for this. And so anyways, we jump back into school and our services go up. And I think the school that we're at has been so great to us that I'm like sad. This is our last year with them. We'll be moving on to middle school, which is
that's another chapter of your
sad, and like all the feelings that you could feel. We did our IEP last night actually, and I remember just thinking like, I think he's more ready than I am.
But that's a good sign though.
It is a good sign.
He's like, oh, I can handle this.
Distinctly said like,
school
is cool, and I was like, is it though? Like, is school? School
is like such a huge part of a child's life.
So
they spend so
huge.
much time there. They have so many. I just remember all the good people, the mean people, the experiences that you have where it's like
that makes or breaks
saying
you.
something so stupid in class, and then how it affects you, and then it's just like, wow, should I even talk again?
Yes.
You have hard experiences in middle school.
So many hard experiences, but so anyways, back to the question. Parker's doing great. I think he's ready for this chapter. He's way more ready than I am. I think he's more maybe naive to it too, that I'm like, are you sure like we're doing this? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, school is school. And I'm like, okay, well, here we go. We're off to this adventure. But he's doing good. I think there was a lot of moments that I thought, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And I remember thinking when he was like 3 and 4 and 5, like, this is the hardest moment. But I'm like, there seems to be more hard moments.
It was like compound.
But he's good. He's ready for this. And so I think stripping everything down and just being like, this is going to be a really hard time kind of made things work out for us maybe in the better. And I think him just being like, I don't want to be homeschooled by my mom.
Having a little taste of that. It's like, okay, that's probably not the best.
Yeah. And kind of just going in with like this attitude of like, everything's okay. You know, like his psychologist has been so fantastic and has told him like, is this a hard moment right now? Like, does it feel like everyone's against you, or is it just like you kind of feel against yourself? And I think him like realizing that has helped so much to be like, okay, like I put this on myself, right? Like there was a moment that he was like, everybody has an Xbox. And it was like, does everybody, or does like 3 of your friends have one? And
we don't have an Xbox.
But we don't know, you know, as a child, you
Yeah.
don't know how to be like, okay, 3 of my friends out of like 10 of my friends, right? So it just, to him, feels like a lot different, a lot heavier. And so I think it's helped him to like learn these like how to regulate himself, I think has helped a ton.
So to be able, so he has, like you said that, like, does he go and visit the therapist often?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's awesome.
when we did his IEP, he now sees him once a week, and at one point it was like an hour, maybe even a little bit longer, and now we're down to 30 minutes a week.
Yeah.
And it's helped him so much just to go and like kind of process like what he's feeling.
Get his feelings out and have someone who is a professional who studied on the degree.
Who's not his mom.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I feel like my opinion should be like a psychologist's opinion, but it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, that's really nice.
It's helped him a whole lot. So I suggest it. Like if you are thinking you need that, jump in it as fast as you can.
Yeah, and to get a good one that he feels safe with.
Yes.
That is like
so lucky that the one he'll have next year for middle school is going to be one that has worked with his current one. So he's already built that relationship, and so he's excited to like see him and like kind of just continue that relationship in a different way.
That's awesome.
So it's exciting for him.
Well, I've got another question. It's kind of, it's not about IEPs, but so you have 5 kids. And I mean, your children, you know, he's a lot older. Like, I feel like we have, even though we both have a son on the spectrum, we have very different experiences because he's more high functioning. You know? And I think, and anyway, so I just want to pick your brain. But in your family and in your family relationships, like what are some things that you do that really help you build and keep your relationship with your son? Yeah,
with our oldest one, I think Parker is pretty much the furthest thing from me that there could be. He is into like Legos and playing video games and reading books. I'm trying.
I love Legos. I can play Legos all day.
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put my effort in for I'm ready. But it's been really good to kind of just get on his level and ask him like, what are you reading? Like he loves to read, as where I am like the furthest person from a book ever. And so he'll read a book a day if you let him. And it's been good to like just asking him those questions like, what are you reading? But being very clear on my questions, not just like, how was your day? But like, what did you eat for lunch? Who did you play with today? Like asking all these questions that he probably wouldn't tell me just naturally. And then just kind of doing those dates. I think in parenting, I always hear like, take your kids on a date, take your spouse on a date, but take your kids on a date. It's kind of fun, and do something that they want to do.
Yes.
Like that's the thing is I'm like, we're going to go to the movies.
That's so smart. Yeah.
But he probably wouldn't care about that. And so just asking them like, what do you want to do today? Or like, you know, and just sometimes he's so simple and just is like, I just want to watch a movie at home. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's simple. Like we can do that. And so definitely getting down on their level. And I think it's different. We are different in the sense that our son was originally diagnosed as a low functioning and now he's considered a high functioning. So over the years that has changed drastically, like what is Parker into at the moment. And so just kind of growing with your child and learning with your child, and like it's so different. Your son is your 4th child? Okay, and mine is my oldest. And so it's like I've had to really like learn and grow as a mom with him, but also with my other kids because they just have such different needs. Yeah. And so definitely do the dates. Do anything that they're into.
I love your suggestions about specific questions, maybe things that he wouldn't naturally like bring into a conversation, but that he wouldn't mind answering. Yes. And then you can get more information about how his day went and what his life is like and how he's living it, you know, even when you're not there. Yeah. You can get those details. Yes. So, yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And then, of course, spending that one-on-one time and scheduled one-on-one time.
Yes, scheduled one-on-one time.
I feel like if I just say, oh, yeah, we'll spend some time together or whatever, it's like my kids don't believe me. Yeah. Like, they have to see it physically on the calendar and to just be like, oh, in 3 days,
Yes.
Mom and I are gonna go on a date.
Yes.
And so then I feel like they're a little bit more patient
Yes.
during the day when I can't give them
Yes.
that attention, because
Yes.
I have a child that needs more attention.
Mhm.
He just needs more attention
Yeah.
from me. And if I tried to equal it out, then I think he would be neglected
Mm-hmm.
because he just demands more attention.
Yeah.
It's like, no, and then we would look around and be like, where's Ezra? Where do you, oh,
Yes.
dang it, did he run away again? Like, oh my gosh, the stories. I'm not going to go into it. But it's tough sometimes.
It is.
It's there is a struggle.
Yeah.
So in your family, with balancing everything, your family dynamics, 5 kids.
Yes.
5 kids is a lot, I know.
It's a ton of kids. I always see people with 5 kids and I'm like, you guys have a lot of kids. And I'm like, wait, we also have 5 kids. Like, we also have a ton of kids.
I do.
And then I'm like, okay, I guess your family's not that big. We're equal right now. But it's wild. Like, having 5 kids is no joke. Having 3 kids is no joke. Having 2 kids is like a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard when you have, and I don't know how your kids are, but I have my next 2 kids. So we have 2 little kids, 2 big kids, and then Parker. My next 2 older kids are just all over the place. They are into everything that there could be. Like sports, drama, theater, like art, dance, all the things that they can be into, they are into. And so it's like, how do you do all of those things and then also take care of that one child, right? And meet their needs, who's like, Parker's old enough to just hang out with us in the car, but nobody wants to hang out in the car.
I know. I think those date nights really mean a lot.
They totally do.
Yeah.
And what a special time too, to like have, and those conversations you can have on those dates of like, I feel like every time we go, I'm like, I didn't know that about you. Like,
You're like, thanks for mentioning that. I know they surprise you,
yes,
right?
Yeah, yes.
You think you know the answer, and then you're like, what? You want to be what when you grow up?
Yes. And it's like,
Are you sure?
it's just like such wholesome, like natural fun too, that we just forget about doing. So,
Yes.
make a point.
It's scheduled.
Schedule
So,
it, put it on the calendar.
That's awesome. All right. Well, before we wrap things up, is there anything that you're just dying to, a story that you want to tell, something that you feel could help someone, before I go into my last question?
Yeah, I think this is like an advice I always give to anybody, especially if you just got that diagnosis.
Yes.
Which it's been
That's
years
my
for
last
us.
question.
Okay.
Okay, so she already read my mind. This is my last question. So what advice would you give to someone who just really got the diagnosis and they've got mixed feelings? Maybe they're like completely in denial or shock, or maybe they're like trying to accept it. Maybe they're just overwhelmed.
So this advice was given to me, and I honestly over the years have thought, and back to like, don't sign that IEP right now. Feel the feelings, grieve the moment.
Let yourself feel.
Let yourself feel.
Okay.
And I look back to the day that our son was diagnosed, and I don't know how it was for you, but for us it was like an 8-hour
It was great.
test.
It was great.
No, like I
It was
cried
the
my whole time home. But we went to like an 8-hour test. It ended up early, and I remember them just handing us this packet, this with like 2 papers in it maybe. And
That's not very much.
no, and this was 10 years ago, so hopefully things have changed.
I got like a DVD.
Oh,
so-
okay, you're better off already.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, where do I go from here? And then I just remembered diving into everything, like the diets and the purple drink in Africa. That's not real. But if it was, I would have tried it. I would have tried it though if it was real. And so one of my friends, a friend of a friend, she had said to me, grieve. And I was like, okay, cool.
Thanks for giving me permission.
Yeah,
Like, what?
yes. And I remember thinking like, grieve what? You know?
Yeah.
But then I remember like months later just being hysterically crying and being like, what are we gonna do? You know, because it is a scary situation. And so my advice would be to grieve, and grieve all those moments, because they keep coming up, because I'm like, kindergarten came and I thought, okay, like this is the end of it. And then, you know, we had 3rd grade was a really hard year, and now we're just graduating 6th grade. And so I, like, even today, I remember being like, we're here in this moment, and how am I feeling? So take care of yourself, take care of your spouse, like talk about it, cry about it, laugh about it, like just feel all the feelings. That was like my best advice, is like grieve the child that you
Anticipated having,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And just know that
your child
after
is
you feel
better
that.
than you thought it was
Yeah,
going to be.
yeah,
Yes.
it is, because after you let yourself feel that, then you can move like
Yes.
up the ladder.
Yes.
You can move on,
Yes.
and you can. If you don't let yourself feel, then it's like you carry this baggage
Yes.
of like, well, I can't feel bad because I love my child just the way he is, and then there's this mom guilt.
Yes.
And so I feel like if we let ourselves feel whatever we're feeling in the moment, then we can move on and we can see like that rainbow amidst
Yes.
the storm.
Oh
We
my
can
gosh,
see that
yes.
light,
That's like the perfect
and we can see
example.
the blessing.
And so I'm like, all these years later, there's still moments that I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna feel this for a minute. Take the bubble bath, drink the Coke, do whatever it is that you have to do to just be in your feelings for a minute, but also like love the child that you have. And I'm so grateful for Parker. Like, he has taught me so many things that I never thought I even needed to learn, and my kids are just fantastic kids, and I swear it's because of him.
I know, right?
I'm like, they're all good kids, but I'm like, they are special kids in their own way.
Yeah.
To have a brother and to just love him unconditionally, and to just all the time, like last night, our son was like, oh, well, come on, Parker, like just love him and just be like, not even skip a beat when it comes to him. I love that part about all my kids. They all do that. But also, like, as a parent, even just the other day talking to my friend who did her first IUP, like, she was like, I'm feeling so many ways. And all I thought is like, feel those ways, like fill them all, and then pick yourself back up and carry on. Like, that's the best advice I could give you.
Awesome.
And so,
Well, I know that it's hard to see, like at first, when you have the mixed feelings, it's hard to see the blessing.
oh yes,
But autism, in so many ways, can be such an amazing blessing because it's different, because it's a challenge, and yet because it takes you to a place where you wouldn't go yourself.
oh for sure. I'm like, you never would sign
I'm
up.
like, no, I would. You'd sign up for something like this, and yet I'm here with my autistic son, and I have an experience, and he teaches me something no one else can teach me.
Yes, I would have never. You know, I think sometimes we look at those little moments, like the first word. I would have never just. I mean, he's my first, so it's a little bit different. But when I had my second, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, that is such a great, beautiful thing that he just said. I don't even know what the first word was, but I remember thinking like, just loving that.
You appreciated
like,
it.
I
And it
appreciated
was
that so much.
Yeah.
And even now, when we see those little victories, celebrate those victories. Love those victories.
Celebrate
Live
the
them.
victories. Every single
Celebrate
victory.
them. Yes.
It doesn't matter what another child is doing
No.
down the street that's the same age.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter if your kid did it 10 years later. It doesn't matter if they did it 20 years later. Like, live, love, and just do everything you can for those little victories because they are worth it. And I think if I didn't have Parker, I wouldn't have noticed those things for sure. I would have never have been like, oh my gosh, my baby said his first word, or Parker's potty training, or all these things, because to my other kids that came so naturally, but when it happened for him, it was like the greatest victory that you could just scream it out to the world.
And I can tell that you're just so proud of him.
Yes, very much.
I can tell that whenever I talk to autism moms,
Yes.
they're just so proud of wherever their child is, and so let yourself feel. Ask your child questions, specific questions, so you can enter their world.
Yes.
And
Into their world. I love that. Yes, that's powerful. Like right there, that is like exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, because I feel like I've heard autistic people say, like, I don't need to be fixed, the world needs to be fixed.
Yes, yeah.
And here we are just trying to like expect them to enter our world all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is how we can connect with our children. That, you know, I mean, autistic or not, is to enter their world.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be like, oh wow, I feel heard, I feel seen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Brittany, isn't she awesome?
I hope so.
She's great. I know, and I'm sure you could talk for hours.
Oh,
on
I
this,
totally could.
because I could too. I'm gonna get emotional. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll probably have you over again, actually.
Yes, of
Because I feel
course.
like you have just so much more experience.
Oh,
So much more experience. So.
There's so many things out there and resources. Like going through my books today, I was like, I should print this off for people. Like,
I know.
these resources other
Right?
people could use.
Well, if you do, and you put it on our website or do a book, I'll put the link in.
Yes, I will.
Anytime. But yeah, so thanks so much for
Yeah, thank you for having
us.
me.
So yeah, and if you want to, you can go to RunRealAutismMom.com and you can go get a free gift there. It's where it's just a little gift that I put together. It's a downloadable thing, and it's 7 ethical ways that I got someone else to pay for my child's medical bills. See ya. Bye.